You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. Since about June last year, there's been one question burning on everyone's mind, and that is, what's Brandon been up to? Well, he's become a dad. For those of you wondering, one of the original hosts of our show went and did that thing of becoming a parent. And man, I've been waiting for this one. We're going to get to ask him what he's been dadding at. And what do dads geek out on? It turns out a little bit of Bluey might be the trick. Hey guys, welcome to Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks. I'm Joshua Knoll, and I'm here with the myth, the legend, the man himself, Father Brandon Knight. Man, that sounds like now he's a real priest of the geek. Father Brandon.
Father Brandon, yes.
He's not an actual ordained priest, for those wondering.
No, I am not. You do know that after I left, that like the audience here exploded, like quadruple the amount of listeners. So by way of the question on everyone's mind, you're talking about like Ryan Doe's. He's literally the only person who's probably wondering where I've been at for the past 8 months. But hello, SG. It has been far too long. Like Josh said, it's been about since June, July of last year since the last time I was here. Josh, do you remember what that episode was? I fact checked it.
Yes.
It was the Harrison Ford.
Yeah. I did enjoy that. I always
that was
enjoy talking about Harrison Ford, though. So that's...
I mean,
I might be biased.
Why not talk about Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
Initially, when you guys were like, let's do one on Harrison Ford, I was like, but what? Okay, fine.
You know what this is, though, don't you? No pressure on you or anything. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if you remember Benedict Cucumber Patch. He had the show Sherlock.
Yes.
And at the end of, was it season 1 or season 2, the character fell off and it looked like he died, but then it turned out he didn't. Mm-hmm. And everybody was trying to figure out what happened to him. And that's when the show's number spiked up because everybody was talking about that. That's what happened here. You left and everybody's like, what happened to that guy? So they've all been just eagerly listening to see if we'll ever finish the story. And here it is. He's back to tell us what he's been dadding.
I do like the fact that since I left, you've added a Star Trek captain. Is that Janeway? I don't know if that's Janeway or not, but you've added a Trekkie. You've added a Trekkie. You added Gandalf, and you have 2 Spider-Men. Way to go to embrace that multiverse thing. I appreciate that. Well, if memory serves me correctly, you should go to patreon.com/systematicgeekology and support the show so that way you can get extra geeky content like one of my favorite Patreon specials, Comic Book Catch-Up, where we talk about some of the comic books that we've been reading all throughout the month. That was always my favorite Patreon spot. Like Josh said, I was one of the original hosts here. I was the Invisible Man. I'm still the only person repping the horror genre. And I like how SG has become like a real comic book because you started with a group of people. Some people have gone off onto their own adventures. You have your core group. You've added people. And now it's that random issue where that one guy from a long time ago is back for another adventure and will literally disappear because I'm the Invisible Man until a later date.
It's Dax.
Okay.
Also, I love how you come on and start plugging our Patreon. I'm like, this is great, man. Wonderful content.
This is not a full return. I'm going to say that, though, for everyone who's having a great time and for everybody who's still listening and for some reason, this is not a full return. Life is still pretty crazy with my own podcast, My Seminary Life. Being a stay-at-home dad does take up a lot of my time. My son is hopefully napping right now, or he's just having a peaceful moment to himself. He's not crying, so that's what we're hoping for. But those things do keep me pretty tied up. But the plan is, now that my seminary schooling is done, the podcast will go on. But now that the schooling is done, I will be popping in and out for these random one-shot adventures. Possibly, if you do really like talking about Bluey, I have watched, I think we're getting to that part when we talk about stuff we've been geeking out on. I've watched a lot of kids shows in 11 months.
That could be an interesting thing in of itself. But we are going to focus in on one today. Guys, yes. I know this has been very scattered, but I'm just excited to talk to my friend Brandon, which if you want to hear us talk more, we've both been guesting a lot on one another's other shows.
That's true.
That's a fun sentence. Yeah. So check out My Seminary Life and the Whole Church podcast if you want to hear more from both of us. And then we're going to jump into this one. We're talking about Bluey. We're also going to talk a little bit about Animal Crossing because Brandon brought up part of why Bluey's a phenomenon right now is the same reason Animal Crossing was probably early pandemic, of it just kind of having like that childlike innocence and wonder. Could you kind of just expound on that?
Sure, yeah. So for those of you who have never played, I'll start with the Animal Crossing part. So for those of you who haven't played Animal Crossing, that is a game that is part of the farming game genre, also sometimes considered cozy gaming, where it's a game with very low stakes, bright colors, happy, peaceful music, very fun animations, and very simple to play. The general gist of every version of Animal Crossing is you live with a bunch of anthropomorphic animals, you have a house, you're paying off your mortgage, you're furnishing your home, you're decorating the area you live in. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but trust me, it's not like Sims where you have very literal real life things like you're doing laundry and everything. It really, the real world stuff stops there. Yes, you do pay off your mortgage for your house, but it is just a very simple, very lighthearted game where a lot of people I have found who deal with issues with anxiety, depression, mental health related issues do enjoy playing these types of games because it's a dopamine hit that a lot of us who are a part of that community needs. You know, it's a break from, it can be a very healthy break from the stress and the just the pain of real life. It can be a very healthy alternative to get away from that and to play these kinds of games. Animal Crossing, another popular one would be like Stardew Valley. My wife loves a game called Cozy Grove, where you're basically you're like a Girl Scout helping ghost bears remember their lost memories. There's another one called On a Hike, Take a Hike, something like that, where you're a penguin climbing a mountain. And I swear that one was designed by millennials our age because the dialogue in the game sounds like how we talked in 2012. Like, I'm pretty sure someone said pwned at one point.
That's funny.
Yes. So Animal Crossing is this, like, it's been a very popular, it's been a regular Nintendo game for decades now. I think it does go back at least to Nintendo 64, possibly even earlier than that. The first version that I played was the one for the GameCube. I played it in college, though. My friend had a GameCube and the game, and that was how I spent a lot of my freshman year in between doing homework and classes, was playing Animal Crossing. What about you? I've said a lot of words. What's your experience with Animal Crossing?
You say freshman, you mean like college?
Freshman year of college, yeah. That was the first time I ever played.
The GameCube was out while you were like...
No.
I see what you mean now.
We had some vintage
you're not
consoles.
older than me.
No.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was like, I remember playing this in like middle school, I felt like.
Yeah. I mean, based on when the GameCube came out, that does make more sense. But no, we just had a GameCube.
Okay.
One of my roommates brought theirs to college, and he brought his copy of whichever one of Animal Crossing was for the GameCube. And that was, But what about you?
For me, I usually get the newest Nintendo system for really just 3 different reasons.
Okay.
Mostly 2, now 3. Usually it's just Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros.
Okay.
Switch also happened to have Pokemon, so that's why I was getting the handheld devices. So now that they're both like in one spot, I'm like, that's cool. Because I would literally got a DS just for Pokemon. I don't think I had a single other game on it. Well, Kingdom Hearts, but that's a given.
Sure.
But yeah, that was it. Those are the only games I had on it. So GameCube, I got it because the new Smash Bros was coming out. And then I was like, well, I have the system. I might as well have other games. I'm a kid. I can ask for other stuff for Christmas than just one game.
Right.
Yeah. So some stuff like Animal Crossing, Pikmin, and some of those ended up making it in there as well. Some of the other games that are like from Smash Bros, you get a Zelda game because who's this guy? Or Star Fox Adventures because I want to know more about him. That kind of stuff. But yeah, mostly it was for those 2. But Animal Crossing snuck in there because I was like, Other people were playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't immune to peer pressure. I'm like, might as well try this.
That's a good peer pressure right there, playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it ended up being like in between other games. I would go back to see how like my little area was doing. So it wasn't even like a game that I was just sitting down to play. It was like, I'll come back and see how it's doing later.
You must have had a lot of weeds in your area then.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
so
what
I
happened.
Clean it all up, make it look good, and then come back the next time and do it again.
Do it again. I get that.
I need to find my GameCube so I can see how bad it is now.
Oh, man.
All these years later. Oh, man. It's just a weed. The whole thing's just a single
one giant weed. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the rumor weed in VeggieTales. Do you remember that one? The Larry Boy?
Yes.
Yeah.
God, that was great. But see, one thing I found interesting, though, is Animal Crossing Islands, or Horizon, whatever it is, came out at the perfect time. So we've all been kind of waiting nostalgia bits since GameCube. They didn't release one on Wii, I don't think.
I don't think so.
And then this comes out on the Switch, and it comes out right during COVID.
Spring 2020, man.
Yeah, man. So you have this like duality of like weird things going on where like from the outside, it's like, man, all these people got stuck inside where they can't do their normal lives. And now they're on a video game where they're working and paying off their mortgage and doing normal life. There was no Animal Crossing mask you had to wear. But then of like what you were talking about, like I feel like it was just this nice relaxing thing, and probably the time that was the least relaxing time we've lived through. Perhaps we will live through, depending on what happened with Russia and Ukraine.
Sure. Yeah, no, that is very true. It did come out at the best possible time for a healthy alternative, a healthy break from the hot mess that was the entirety of 2020. I'm trying to think. I got it when it came out, which is one of the few times I don't buy games right when they come out, because I'm cheap. I do not want to pay $60 for a brand new game. I still don't have Smash Bros. Ultimate because it still has not come down in price. I know.
Worth it.
I know it is. I just don't want to pay that much money. But with Animal Crossing New Horizons, for Animal Crossing New Horizons, no, I wanted it immediately because I had never owned my own Animal Crossing game before. And my wife, Claire, she had never played one, never even heard of the game. And I was like, I'm about ready to change your life. And then our life actually changed with what happened in 2020. And she just got hooked on the game.
Man, yeah, that was such a wild time. I got married like a week or two before everything became a big deal. That it was like,
did you really?
Animal Crossing, and that it was like, what is the world right now?
What is the world? What's this Tiger King thing all about?
For real, I had to work during it all because I was at Chipotle, and my brother, his living situation was weird. He ended up being with us for a few weeks.
Okay,
and my wife did not have to work during that time. So there for about a week, I was come home every day, and they were just updating me on this thing called Tiger King, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
I still have not watched Tiger King, and I was home for the first 2 months.
I watched it, and I still don't get it.
You still don't get it? Okay, whatever.
Why?
That is not something that is relaxing. That show exploded in popularity again because of the timing of everything. That was like the hot release. Yeah, that was our first option. We watched all the Star Wars movies. Moving on.
Good stuff. Yeah. So a similar phenomena happened. I guess it's been on for a while, but I haven't started hearing about it until like maybe later last year, early this year. Yeah, how everybody seems to be into this show, Bluey. Even some of my friends my age who don't have kids are like, "Yeah, this show's great." So, while you have been in your dad experience, when did Bluey come on the horizon for you?
We've always been aware of Bluey because, like you said, it's been for the past, I would say maybe 2 years. It was right around the same time. I would say slightly post 2020 when this phenomenon started of this show on Disney Plus from Australia started getting super popular and super noticeable. It's a show for kids. It's a children's show that captured the hearts of not just kids, but as Josh was saying, grown adults without kids as well, who tune in to watch Bluey, her sister Bingo, and her parents just play. That's really
Are the
what
parents
every
actually just named mom and dad?
the dad is Bandit and the mom is Chili.
Okay, because I feel like I
Yes.
never see their name.
Oh, okay. They
in the
rarely
episodes
say
I've
them.
seen, I'm like, I just what?
They rarely say the mom's name. The dad's name comes up every once in a while.
Yeah, I feel like I could hear that though. Someone say Bandit, and me just think that was like a, like something like you just called him rather than like his name.
That's just something Australian people say, right?
Yeah, that was the thing too. I was surprised that it was Australian, and I'm kind of curious about this. A lot of times, it's hard for shows to make it from like England, Australia to the U.S. It happens a lot one way and not that often the other way around. I'm not sure if the same is true with cartoons though. So
I don't know.
I'm interested.
I'm interested to find out. Yeah, but no, it is Australian.
Write us and let us know.
Right. And this actually has been a very new addition to my son's TV lineup. I'm going to talk very specifically to the parents listening to this show because there are many ways to parent. And my wife and I's philosophy on parenting is do what's best for you and your kid. So what we have been doing with our son is that during the day when I am home with him, there are 3 specific times when the TV is on. And when he was itty bitty, and during that phase where he basically just lays there and stares at you and doesn't do much and sleeps most of the day, I watched a lot of TV. Like if you would have had me on the show back in like September or October, I would have had a whole list of stuff to talk about. But basically, since I would say the beginning of this year, it has predominantly been children's programming that is on the TV, and that's fine. And my wife and I, we value trying to find these shows that are more educational, teaching him stuff, or is baby sensory, like Baby Einstein's, Hey Bear, things like that. So we've been doing this kind of routine of a couple times throughout the day, the TV is on of stuff for him to watch. Sometimes he sits there and watch it. Sometimes he's playing and I'm watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. But
yeah, hot dog.
Yeah, hot dog. The show that we put on right before bedtime is Bluey. And this has started within this past month. And it does have this Animal Crossing cozy gaming factor of it being very low stakes. It is a kid show after all, but it's very low stakes, very bright colored, soft, happy music, and not really like, I would say it's not necessarily educational. You do have some of these like life skill moments as Bluey and Bingo are learning how to be good siblings with each other, or there's a misunderstanding at school and the kids have to kind of figure their way through the misunderstanding. But for the most part, it's a big emphasis on imaginative play. Both parents are very involved in their kid's life. Actually, as a stay-at-home dad, I feel like I have like proper representation because Bandit is a stay-at-home dad as well. And you just have what?
Are you Bandit?
Am I a bandit? Oh man,
new avatar time.
Anyway,
just Bandit's body with Brandon's face on
my face. There's a very black beard,
just very clearly photoshopped too. Like nothing like the other avatars. Like actually just your face.
you just really phoned it in on this one. And I think for a lot of parents, part of the appeal of this show is that it's not super repetitive. There are a lot of these kid shows like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse that it's the same thing over and over, and there's only so many times you can hear them say, "Oh, toodles," before you're ready to throw the TV. But with Bluey, it's different in every episode. There's a lot of imaginative play. The parents are like #goals. Like this is who you should try to be Bandit and Chili. And it again, during a time where we always talk about like the pandemic ended at midnight 2020 and we moved into 2021, but we still have COVID, still a real thing. We're still healing a lot from 3 years later from 2020, and I think it still hits that like comfort food mark for a lot of people of let's just not watch the news tonight and watch these great 5 to 10 minute long episodes of Bluey.
Yeah. And it's like some of it sheds interesting lights on things that's like kind of cool that I've enjoyed. But yeah, as far as like the comfort thing, for sure, right? Like even going back like when we were talking about Animal Crossing, it was like, man, instead of thinking of people how the number of people dying is skyrocketing and what new thing Donald Trump decided to say or what the other politicians said in response, all that stuff that's constantly on the news is like, man, I could just plant an apple and watch it become a tree really quickly on Animal Crossing. Maybe, chop some wood for no reason, pull a couple weeds, go fishing, add it to my museum that I have for some reason.
Yep.
Yeah. And now it's like, especially as the political cycles kind of coming back around, we're kind of getting into that gross time again, and we still haven't quite recovered from the last gross stuff. And it's like, oh man. And that's like, man, or instead, I could think about 4 Australian dogs, and watch them play pretend. Stump Fest was the episode that I think really got me. So I started off at the beginning, which starts with Magic Xylophone. And because I did my best to not know anything about it going in other than, I knew it was dogs. I didn't know that he was being a good dad at first. Like I thought maybe this was actually a Magic Xylophone. They'd hit it and freeze and he actually just stopped completely. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I was like, oh, no, he's actually just a good dad and is letting his kids
play. Just
basically ruin his face and stuff for entertainment. And I'm like, okay, cool. I kept watching it where I'm like, man, this is just a kid show. I didn't quite get the phenomenon. I still don't know if I do quite get it because it's a lot bigger than what makes sense to me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I started going through people's favorite episodes that they've been posting online. So I went to Stump Fest. Man, it was so cool. 3 dads are together and they're going to be tearing up the stumps and the moms are watching. Turns out the moms are making jokes back and forth. They very much have like the wine mom vibe to me.
Nice.
And they're just kind of like watching the bed and occasionally making jokes, whatever. And the kids are like, oh, we're going to make this other one a nail salon. And Dad's like, okay, sure, you can do that. But just know when we're done with this stump, we are tearing that one down. Do not get attached to it. Like he warned her, like, repeat after me. And to everyone's surprise, she in fact did get attached, as Morgan Freeman narrates over. And they were like, no, Dad, you can't. And then the moms are like, yeah, no, stop the stump, save the stump. Like, and then the one mom goes to the other one's like, aren't you the one who wants him to do this? Oh, yeah, that's right. I wanted to put a pond in. And then she starts shouting again, save the stump. And, it's just so funny because I'm like, yeah, that's my friends who are parents. Yeah, that's the vibe. And then, like, watching the whole thing. And then when the mom at the end explains to Bluey, like, because Bluey's like, it's not fair. You shouldn't stop someone from playing. She goes, well, you were getting in his way of playing. It's like, he's not playing. He's doing work. It's like, sit here and watch with me for a minute. And, the dads are like tearing up, going, wow, you did so good. And they're like laughing up and stuff. And she's like, oh, they are played. And that's like, oh, man, yeah, that's right. That's what we grown-ups do for play.
Right. I do like, there are a lot of those episodes where the teaching moment is more of a sit back and observe type of teaching moment rather than the kids, let's count to 6. It's more of a sit back and watch. One episode I really liked was, I think it was called Bike. Every episode starts with Bluey saying, this episode of Bluey is called Bike. And that's, and Bluey is having a really hard time learning how to ride her bike. And she gives up. She goes and she sits with her dad on the park bench and they watch Bingo and 2 of the other, I think it's Bingo, Muffins, who's one of their cousins and one of their other friends. And Bingo's having trouble with the water fountain. Muffins is having trouble putting on her backpack. And the other friend is too short to do the monkey bars. And what I thought this was going to be was a natural kids moment of dad encouraging Bluey to go help each one of her friends, her sister and her cousin, to do the thing they're trying to do. Instead, her dad tells her, just sit and watch. And each one of them gets frustrated. Each one of them gives up. But then they sit back, look at the thing they're trying to do, come at it from a different angle, And they're able to get a drink from the water fountain, put their backpack on, do the monkey bars. And it's from that Bluey learns, okay, sometimes when you get frustrated, you just need to sit back, think about it from a different point of view, and then go try again. And so the episode ends with her walking away to go try to ride her bike again. See, those are some of the cool teachable moments. Like Josh said, there are some hilarious episodes. One of my favorites is Shadowland, where it's kind of like the floor is lava, but they play outside and you can only walk around in areas that are shadowed, and anything in the sunlight is like the ocean, I think is what they said. And so that was like the whole episode was Bluey and two of her friends, I think, running around in the Shadowland, playing like this big adventure. And then like a car would pull out of the parking lot at the park. And so now there was this huge gap of sunlight. Okay, how do we get across? A lot of like, if you ever played Floor is Lava, it's a lot of that.
That sounds fun. We should SG get together in Florida. It was super challenging round.
Oh, there you go. Or sometimes you have like these more artistic style episodes. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was Camping was the episode. And Bluey and her family, they go camping for the day or for the weekend, and Bluey meets another dog while they're out camping, and she befriends this other dog who is French and only speaks French. And so part of the episode, the learning moment of the episode, is Bluey and this French dog learning how to communicate with each other when they don't speak each other's language. And I guess I'll spoil it. I guess if you care about spoilers for a kid's show, that's, hit the fast forward button here in a second. But what's like one of those like knife to the chest moments is that at the end of the episode, Jean-Luc leaves.
Nice.
Jean-Luc leaves before Bluey's family does, and Bluey's really upset about it. But they had planted a seed like the night before, a couple days before, as they were playing, they had planted a seed. And it shows like a montage of that seed growing into a tree. And then Bluey walking back to the tree as a teenager, not as a small puppy anymore. Aww. And Jean-Luc walking up as a teenager and also has learned English by this point. And so it's this real like,
that's awesome
moment. Yes. It's a really good episode. And there's so many. It's all of this imaginative play in every episode as well.
The problem I have with that, though, is now it's like spoilers. We know that Bluey at least survives until her teens.
True. Like, there's going to be a lot of seasons of this show. I think season 3 has just come out.
Yeah. So this is fun. It's fun. Just like talking about like episodes and stuff that we both have seen. You've definitely seen more. I remember the Baby Race. Speaking of ones that are like just fun, like observational things. I was like, hey, we don't need to be so competitive. But I really liked how in the episode, I'm trying to think, I think it's called Flatbox. The parents are trying to put together a bench, a swinging bench kind of deal.
Okay.
And they're like discarding stuff as they do, throwing it into the yard. And then Bluey and Bingo.
Yeah.
Bluey and Bingo are, every time something goes out, the first is like bubble wrap, and they lay on it. Okay, let's pretend we're fish. Okay, now we're going to pretend like we're lizards. And now we're going to pretend like whatever. And they just kept like evolving. Eventually they became cave people because they had a big box that they decided was a cave, and they did paintings of all the other things they imagined themselves doing. So they were imagining themselves dressing, like drawing out the evolution of what they did. Anyway, at some point, the parents looked back and saw the kids, and they realized, they were kind of bickering a little bit, not really, but kind of trying to figure out how to put this bench together, going, oh, well, we could work together better. And it wasn't explicitly said that they learned from the kids or anything. They just saw what the kids were doing and said, we got to do better, And then at the end, so as it goes along, Bluey decides, Bingo, pretend like I'm your mom and you're my baby. And then, the next thing they do, Bingo would be like, I want to pretend like I'm a kid now. Okay, well, you pretend like okay, I want to pretend like I'm a teacher now. Okay. And then it was, which is funny because, they have like the evolution thing. Then they have her pretending like she's growing up at the same time each stage, which is kind of funny.
That's funny.
And eventually they pretend like they were birds and Bigo flew away. And then Bluey goes, oh, what do I do now? And her parents were sitting there on the bench they finally finished and said, just come sit. And she sat and they just watched Bingo pretend like she was a bird that just flew away after growing up. And it was like nothing was explicitly said. There wasn't like an explicit, this is the message of this episode kind of deal. But it was like, oh, okay, yeah, nice and subtle, which is kind of weird for a kid show.
Yes. A lot of kids programming is very in your face, not like we're trying to send a message, woke America type of messaging, but just like, the number of the day, the letter of the day in Sesame Street. Very obvious, But with Bluey, it is a refreshing change of pace of just these very subtle teaching moments built around all of the play, all of the parents just being like very normal, very healthy parents. Naturally, with a kid's show, you hope that all the parents are okay and not Homer and Marge, but you never know. So it is a refreshing change of pace to have these parents that are, they're good parents. They're good parents. They love their kids. They're willing to go very far for them. And they also have that gentle parenting of like being willing to admit when you're wrong as a parent to your kid.
Yeah. I don't know if you froze. Okay, no. See, this is how I know that Brandon's a dad. And I'm not yet, because he's like, yeah, you don't want Homer as a dad and a kid show. I'm like, what are you talking about? Bluey, but the dad is Bender? That sounds great.
Bluey, but the dad is Bender. Burping fire.
Shut up, kid.
Shut up, kid. I know it.
Perfect. Oh man, So this is the last episode I'll talk about, and then we'll let you tell us if you have a favorite episode, what it might be.
Okay.
But it was I think it's like The Creek or something like that. I don't remember the exact name. But the kids are playing on the playground. It was Bluey and some friends, and they were basically just decided they were tired of all the swings and stuff. And the dad just really didn't want to get up, but eventually he did. And he was like, leads them to the wood where he used to play in the creek. Which also, just a side random note, I didn't like how they animated the creek. It looked gross. Anyway,
a little bit.
So they went into the woods and they like saw the stuff. And Bluey, it's never like, oh, she's scared and needs to learn courage. Again, it's just not explicit. But she's like, she has these moments of where she can't figure out how to walk on a thing, or she's kind of afraid to jump from one thing to the next, and this kind of stuff. She goes to the creek, and her dad just downplays everything. Like, oh no, you got this. Okay, no, it's fine. Oh, you fell. Okay, that's cool. He didn't make a big deal out of anything. And then they make it to the creek eventually, and this is funny because I just watched this after I went on this camping trip myself, and I went to Cumberland Island, saw some cool wild horses and different stuff.
Cool.
Bluey's at the creek. She goes to get water or mud for one of the games they're playing, where they're piling mud on the dad's face naturally. And,
they're doing a spa day.
Yeah, of course. And when she goes to get mud, she sees this like little baby dingo or baby kangaroo, baby something, baby Australian animal. And she said, and it's funny because she's been saying throughout the time, like she was trying to convince herself, like the river's beautiful or gorgeous or something. And then that time she goes, oh, the river's. And then throughout else, you see her as she's going back doing all these things that she kind of hesitated or was a little scared to do, or, whatever, no problem. And for me, someone who just really likes camping and like the outdoors and stuff, I'm like, that's it. And I never had to say it. And I think that was the cool thing.
One of my favorite jokes in that one is the dad warns everybody to watch out for drop bears, which drop bears, for those of you who don't know, is this urban legend in Australia of basically like evil koala bears, but they're totally made up, and they use this as a tactic to scare tourists when they come to visit Australia. So the dad's like, watch out for drop bears, and Bingo goes, wait, really? No. But seriously, look out for snakes. There's snakes back here.
Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, there was something else. I forget what it was. It's like, wait, really? And he goes, no, but we do need to check you for ticks.
Yeah, I don't remember what the animal was that second time, but yeah, funny. It was fun. But like, seriously, we have to check you for ticks.
Yeah, like great dad humor. Very dad-like. Oh, man. So do you have a favorite episode of Bluey?
I do really like Shadowland. Like I said earlier, I do really like Shadowland. I like camping. Probably one of the ones that I laugh the most at is that there is an episode where Bluey and Bingo pretend to be old ladies. Okay. That
Oh,
is the game. They pretend to be old ladies.
perfect.
Rita and Joan or something like that. It's like very old fashioned women's names. But Bingo wants to dating the show ever so slightly already. Bingo keeps wanting to floss. And Bluey's like, no, Bingo, you don't floss. Old ladies don't floss. And so they like FaceTimed with their grandparents to see if they could floss, and they couldn't. So then Bingo got really upset. So then Bluey goes back on FaceTime to teach their grandparents how to floss because the mom was talking to Bluey and was like, do you want to be right or do you want Bingo to play? Because Bingo did not want to play anymore because Bluey was right. And the mom was like, do you want to be right or do you want Bingo to play? So Bluey goes and teaches her grandparents how to floss so that way they could do it in front of Bingo. So that way they could go back to playing Old Lady, which, by the way, playing Old Lady was a hilarious game of parking wherever you wanted to and talking very loudly in grocery stores and just very, very obviously very stereotypical, offensive things. But they're 6 and 4 years old. So it's like they just see the world around them and go, okay, old ladies talk really loud in grocery stores and don't drive very well and things. It's very funny and similar to that park bench episode or the swinging bench episode you brought up earlier of the parents kind of learning a little bit from the kids during the course of the events of the episode. At the very end, Bluey and Bingo, both dressed as old ladies, are flossing, and the mom and dad look at them and say, do you think we'll be as active as they are at their age? Which they're not talking about the children, they're talking about the two old ladies they're playing as. And the parents are like, will we be as active as them when we're their age? And it's this cute moment, but also
funny.
like, it's nice. It's nice because the parents are like taking this joking moment to look forward to their own lives as they get older.
It's a surprisingly thoughtful show. I haven't seen that episode yet, but I now want to. And I think that's a good moral for geeks. You know,
Okay.
that's something. Let's see. This is something that it does irritate me so often. Geeks rather be right than play. Rather be right than people watch your movie and show or support them at the theater. You know, it's like,
isn't that a T-shirt you guys have now? Like what you like and don't be a jerk about it or something like that.
That is. They could go check that out at systematicgeekology.org. But
that plug.
But I really do like it's something that I'm guilty of. I'm going to make this about me, and if people who are observing, like Bluey, decide that this also applies to them, then cool.
Okay.
You know, I have a problem with like when it's Captain America or like Lord of the Rings or something that I'm like super attached to.
Okay.
Some stuff irritates me. The fact that Red Skull didn't come back and they still haven't brought him back for Captain Steve Rogers versus Red Skull movie. I'm like, man, they're really messing this up. And I get tempted to just kind of tell everybody how they're messing it up and this isn't how it's supposed to be. And, it's just like, man, wait a minute. Aren't I just glad that there's a Captain America movie? Like, can't I just enjoy that and let other people enjoy it? Like, can't that just be a thing? And like, yeah, there's stuff that they did in Rings of Power that wasn't exactly like the Silmarillion. Man, can't I just be glad that I'm getting more Middle Earth content and just let everybody have fun with it? Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm going to be, I don't know when this episode is coming out, or this other episode. So I don't know when this Bluey episode is coming out, but sometime in April, I'm going to be on my friend's podcast. It's a movie review show and to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And we just saw it for a sneak preview screening yesterday. And it's one of these movies where, and I think this also kind of creeps into the toxic fandom side of things where not to spoil it, but it's not anything special. It was fun. Chris Pine is amazing because he's amazing in everything he's in. but it's not anything really to write home about. It's just a fun, maybe little too long movie. And that's okay. We've kind of lost this whole viewpoint of once upon a time, the best that we could get in geek movies was Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider. Like that's the best we could, that was the most we could look forward to there for a while.
Yeah.
The most that we could look forward to was Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern. Like that was something we all got excited about at one point. The point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes in this whole like what you like and don't be a jerk about it, is that it is fine when some of this content comes out and it's just entertaining. Not everything, I think we've been maybe a little spoiled by the MCU, and now the MCU is even paying for it in a way, of not everything has to be groundbreaking and the next big thing, although maybe the MCU needs a little bit more of a direction. Anyway, but the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes we can just enjoy these forms of content for the pure enjoyment of it, for the pure entertainment value of it, because we used to. That's where we came from. Every once in a while, we had these groundbreaking films, Blade, X-Men, Batman 1989, Superman the movie, more accurately, Superman 2. Like we had these like groundbreaking films every once in a while, peppered in with other stuff that's just kind of fun to watch now. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to get back to less of this toxic mindset of what you were saying of it has to be exactly the way that I want it, which is what you hear a lot from the Star Wars fans, maybe just to pick one particular group of people. Not all Star Wars fans are toxic. See Pastor Will and my wife as an example. Like there are some Star Wars fans who are very much like, hey, I'm just happy to have more. I'm just happy to have another movie. I'm just happy to have another show. And I think the wider geek audience, we just need to be happy that we get this thing every once in a while. And not everything is great. And sometimes you can point out the fact that Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, and the Eternals weren't good. But
Thor the Dark World was good, by the way.
Did you like Thor the Dark World? I thought we all agreed that one was not good.
I enjoyed it.
But we can also be happy that for the past 20 years, Marvel has been putting out a pretty consistently good product.
Yeah. So here's case study, the Miss Marvel show.
Okay.
I first watched it, mind you, Miss Marvel. I have like in each genre of things or each platform, I guess, books, comics, movies, I'll pick like 3 or 4 things that I'm like, I'll rate this 10 out of 10. Because to me, my quick rant about why I think people rate things wrong. People rate things like you're grading them. A rating is not a grading. 70 isn't average. 5 is average. Because when you're rating, you're saying 0 is the worst, not 0% good. And you're saying 10 is the best, not 100% good. So 5 should be average.
I follow. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Because rating and grading are different. Anyway, that's just my little side note.
Fair enough.
But Miss Marvel is by G. Willow Wilson is the one of 3 comic books I'll give a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
It is the best for me in comics. So when this show came out, I was expecting that comic, but on TV. So I was expecting 10 out of 10 show, which it obviously wasn't. And I tried to prepare myself not to get my expectations too high. But you know what? When you're trying to convince yourself not to have expectations too high, it doesn't really work. So I watched it and I was like, okay, episode 1 and 2, I kind of got behind, and then the middle ones happened. And then the last one, I was like, oh, hey, they kind of hinted at what I wanted in the first place. And then I had to watch it a second time and realize, oh, wait, I just need to watch it for what it is, not for what I want it to be. And I enjoyed it a lot more. And now, currently, I'm reading The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson and getting more into her writings and realizing, man, this might just be one of my favorite authors ever.
Nice.
That book is one of the best books I've read in an extremely long time. And it's just kind of, hey guys, there's a way of, there's sometimes you it's a 10 out of 10, right? Sometimes it's, hey, this is just for relaxing. It's an Animal Crossing. It's a Bluey. Maybe it's not your favorite ever, but it's nice. Just fun. Watch it. Just enjoy it.
Sure.
And then sometimes you can take these things that you loved and find a way to go deeper and let other people have their own entrance to it. Like somebody else gets introduced to Miss Marvel by that show. That's cool. I don't have to get introduced again. I've already been introduced. I can go read her novels now and love those.
Sure.
And this is where, I'm going to be cheesy and make that little Bible, like, hopefully it doesn't feel like I'm forcing it in here, but there are parts of, but you know what I mean? Like, there are parts of the Bible where you read it, like some of the Psalms and Proverbs, and it's just uplifting. It just makes you feel better. And that's okay. That's a good thing. And there are parts where you're like, what the heck? God just had this guy sacrifice his own virgin daughter after she went and had a party celebrating that her life is over.
Right.
What is this about? And you want to dig deeper because you're like, why is this in the Bible? Right. Like,
right. Yeah.
That's something you should study.
That's like the entirety of the book of Judges, though, because that's where that story is you're referencing. God. It's like the book of Judges is a very dark moment in the history of the Bible. Just overall.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny, Josh, is that as coming back to the Miss Marvel thing for a second, is that you have those instances of like, well, that wasn't what I was hoping for. That's how I felt about Captain America Civil War, because I love the Civil War graphic novel, and like Captain America versus Iron Man did happen. It's kind of it.
It was still good, but
it was good.
It should have been named something else, I feel like.
Correct. But then on the flip side, you have these instances where it is very close to the book and people still hate it. Watchmen is a great example of that. Not the HBO series, but the Zack Snyder film Watchmen, because it is shot for shot, panel for panel, dialogue for dialogue from the book to the movie. For me, Watchmen is a 10 out of 10. I love Alan Moore. And I love that book. So many layers. And I thought it's one of those few times where I was like, Zack Snyder, well done. And coming from the DC guy, one of those few times I was like, well done, Zack Snyder. But it got panned because Zack Snyder didn't take enough creative liberty. So you're going to get this both ways of whether you're true to the book or not. People are just not going to be happy about it. And maybe we should just turn on Bluey and enjoy ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. To go back to your Star Wars example.
Sure.
When the sequels were coming out, that first one, I watched it and I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was Star Wars. Force Awakens.
Star Wars.
It was Star Wars, It was like, it wasn't anything special. Then everybody complained that it was so much like the original movie and they're just trying to do a copy and paste, but with a female lead. And I'm like, who cares? It was Star Wars. That's cool. But then The Last Jedi came out and they did everything different. And I loved it. I was like, oh man, I didn't expect literally any of this. And I get excited. When a movie can surprise me, I get excited. Like, that's what I loved about Captain America Winter Soldier. Because at that point, comic book movies didn't quite cross the line. That one was like, no, we're going to do it exactly like the comics in some ways. Some of those things that you don't expect us to do, like we're just going to bring Hydra back, go full comic book style. You just didn't expect movies to do that back then. So I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
That was awesome. So,
that was a good one.
Yeah. But Last Jedi, I was like, that was so cool. Then everybody complained that it was too different and it wasn't like anything and it wasn't like the legend books and it wasn't like the old movies. And I'm like, guys, you literally just complained it was too much like those things. Like, chill.
I got a little toxic when Rogue One came out because I was like, okay, I get it. We're going to learn about Rey's parents. I'm not dumb. And then it comes out and it's really very different from the rest of the Star Wars universe. And when Claire and I left, the first movie we saw together as a couple, BT Dubs, and we both got out and we were like, I don't know about that movie. Now Rogue One's one of my favorite Star Wars films.
Okay, good.
Because
good. I was worried.
Once you can get past, I didn't really care for Andor, the TV series, but once I kind of got past the shock of, oh, this is actually very different. I really liked it. It's a Star Wars action movie.
Yeah. Also, that's just a fun thing about me. I like sad things sometimes. I love sad songs. If it's done poetically, I think it's cool. And I think that movie did a good job at having a sad ending that had meaning. It wasn't like it was just sad to be sad. Like there was a reason for it, so it was cool.
Sure.
But yeah, sometimes it's good to just sit and stuff and enjoy it for what it is. Watch them play Imagine. Here's a fun thing that'll make a lot of geeks angry. All of our favorite movies are just adults playing pretend. And sometimes you just watch them play pretend. Have fun with it. Like, oh man, isn't it cool? Bingo thinks she's a bird flying around. It's awesome.
I was trying to. I couldn't. I was trying to come up with an actor and say, and look, so and so thinks they're a good actor, but I couldn't. I blinked on every name. Every name I came up with was like someone who is a good actor. So,
That's
but yeah,
funny. Man.
the guy who played Han Solo
No,
in Solo, he thinks that he's a good actor. I heard he's good in Cocaine Bear, though. I heard that's more his spot, doing comedies about
To be
bears
fair,
killing people.
it was an awful idea for anyone to take the role of Han Solo. Like, everyone
Well,
should have
yeah.
known you are going to get hate for this,
Yeah.
regardless of how well you do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
not
I've
great.
got like mixed feelings on Solo. But we don't have to go into Solo right now. That
TJ
could be a
likes
whole
it.
separate episode.
Every time I watch it, I dislike it less. Yeah.
See,
that's
my
what
one of my brothers who's super into Star Wars dislikes it more every time there's one more thing that makes him mad.
Perfect. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say about learning to kind of just rest in things, learning to kind of, I don't know, maybe be more at peace, maybe have a comfort show or a comfort Bible verse, anything like that?
Yeah, I guess that is a good point to bring up, is that I think a lot of times in evangelical American Christianity, for those of us out there who are trying to, for lack of a better term, fix it, we present spirituality and we present our Christian faith as like this very hard science. Like, this is coming from the guy whose show is based on going to seminary, that we want to make it like a hard, this is a tough religion, that you have to be diligent in your studying, that life isn't good, life is difficult, life is full of pain. And these things are all true. But I feel like we make it all about that, because pop culture Christianity, as I call it over on MSL, is very light. It's very fluffy. It is very, cotton candy. But I think for those of us who are trying to maybe combat against pop culture Christianity, which I think is appropriate to do, don't get me wrong, I think we're overcorrecting at times, and we lose the fact that there are comfort passages in Scripture. There are gentle and meek moments with Jesus along this journey, and that we can't dismiss that. We do need to recapture that in a better, more biblically accurate way than maybe pop culture American Christianity does normally present it. I guess for an example of pop culture Christianity, for those of you who are like, what? Hobby Lobby and all of the decorative wooden signs. And okay, we don't have Christian bookstores anymore, but if for those of us who are old, like Josh and I, if you recall, there used to be like sections of like books all about marriage and dating and how to spend your money for Jesus, and 1,001 books on leadership.
Well, they sell those at Hobby Lobby now.
Right. They got grafted over there. Like, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about like pop culture Christianity. It's like a very, very emotionally driven. Some people would gender it and say it's a very feminine approach to Christianity. I'm not really for that, because I'm not really for that type of description, because I think the masculine form of Christianity also isn't all that accurate either. I think that kind of falls into that whole, we're making this a very like tough, rigid,
you're starting to sound a little yin yang.
Oh, sorry. I can stop if you want.
Go on.
But I think what a shock, the martial artist started talking yin and yangish. But I think that for those of us who are trying to push back against this like only soft Christianity with a only hard Christianity, we need to acknowledge the fact that we have these passages of Scripture, Psalm 23. We have passages of Scripture like Jesus saying, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." We have passages like Jesus saying, "Let the little children come to me." Like, we have these passages where things are gentle, things are meek, things are mild, and that's okay. And we need that as part of our spirituality, as part of our spiritual formation, to have these points when we can go into a gentleness, a meekness mode. Yes, there is times I also don't like wartime rhetoric. I think that's something we've abused as well. But there are times where we are to stand firm in our faith. I'll put it that way. There are times to stand firm. There are times to say, thus saith the Lord, you need to repent. But there are times to rest in the Lord, to approach people in gentleness, in meekness. Kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. Anger is not. Just going to put that one out there. Like,
yeah. Well, since we were talking about why Animal Crossing was popular, especially during 2020, sure. I'm throw out there. In my own observations in 2020, I didn't see any of the angry Christians talking about how Macs don't really work or talking about whatever point or yelling about the other side. I didn't see any of them really win anybody over, but I actually did see a few people who seemed happy and peaceful, that people my age were actually asking them questions like, why the world's crazy. Why are you like this? Like, why are you,
why are you like
just this? Okay right now? How are you okay? And I think that, gets what's the peace that surpasseth all understanding or whatever.
Sure.
That's a thing. Also, I think it should be a huge red flag for yourself if you hear the phrase rest in the Lord and you're not really quite sure what it means. If you haven't had that kind of moment.
Yeah, for sure.
You should seek it.
Or even if you're just like anti-rest in general, friend of the show, actually friend of all of the shows present, Matthew Winter posted recently on Facebook about how Christians need to slow down. I think I may have used the word frick because, I'm a 2010 millennial Christian. Need to slow the frick down. And I couldn't agree more. I think that is part of Christianity. That is absolutely a part of Christianity, is this one's for you, Josh, is this shire mentality of being able to sit back, enjoy your pipe, enjoy your ale, be very aware of what is out there, because that's kind of what happens in The Lord of the Rings. The hobbits do go home wiser and more aware of what the world is like there. And Sam still gets married and has a life. And Pip and Merry presumably just keep being slightly mischievous and things like that. So
I can only hope.
We can only hope that they continued to steal fireworks. But we need to rest. We need to find that comfort show. It is okay to have a comforting Bible verse. It is okay to, have that. You brought up having sad music. Like, I'm not really a sad music person, but that indie coffee shop music, that's a good one for me. I love JJ Heller. I don't know if anyone has listened to her music. She writes lullabies. She writes Christian lullabies, and they're peaceful, and they're just what the doctor ordered when you need some rest and you need a break from the world.
To go back to being a little yin yang, I can do it too, it turns out. So because this is a little bit ironic. After my car accident that I had like in 2016, my femur was shattered. I had a collapsed lung, had to have like 2 brain surgeries. It was a whole ordeal. I was very broken. I wasn't allowed to look at screens, couldn't read, couldn't do anything. And since I couldn't look at screens or read, I couldn't read the Bible. But I did this thing where, of all things, I had this comfort verse that I was quoting to myself that made no sense for a comfort verse. That's why I say it's yin yang, right? Because it was like Isaiah 28:1. What's funny is I have a hard time remembering it now, but it stuck in my head very clearly at that point for some reason. And it was like, the Lord with his great and powerful and mighty sword will slay Leviathan. Yes, Leviathan, the mighty serpent.
I love how a verse about Leviathan got stuck in your head
during the Lord
what sounds like a very traumatic event. Here's a verse about God slaying what was probably a mythical creature that the original audience was familiar with.
What's funny is, so in like Hebrew poetry, Leviathan and the waters all represent like chaos. So I was able to like see why that actually made sense.
Sure.
And I preached it at a later date. And I took my grandfather, who recently passed, the Bible to preach. Mind you, I've gone through this thing forward and backwards several times looking for any notes or anything. There wasn't anything in it. And I was super aggravated. So when I opened it to Isaiah 28:1, and that was the one verse that was highlighted, that was pretty weird. That was a cool moment.
That's awesome.
Hey, God's cool. But so God slaying was my comfort verse.
Let's go.
I like to believe also my grandfather's comfort verse for some reason.
Like it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
this is comforting. God kills things.
God slays chaos. I mean that is very helpful.
Technically
That is very
comforted,
helpful. Yeah.
just worded in a very yang kind of way.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was
man.
one big sword. At least in my imagination, it is.
Oh, man. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add or fun notes to put at the end of this?
Fun notes to put at the end of this. Check out Bluey, obviously. Play Animal Crossing. Be imaginative. That I was going to get on that soapbox. We actually have talked about this over at My Seminary Life before. We talked about something that SG talked about of why do they celebrate Christmas in Narnia. That came out as part of the holiday special holiday party 2023 episode. If you want to go check it out over at My Seminary Life, Josh and I talked about this and got on the topic of like, hey, that Christian guy C.S. Lewis is used Father Christmas, and there's a lot of Christians who they don't like Santa Claus too much. And we talked about just like this embracing of imagination, or by some Christians, it seems like more in the liturgical church context. And then people in the evangelical Christianity side of things who the more that I don't know if I talked about it in this episode, Josh, but it's something I've reflected on more, is that truth and imagination, make believe, like they're not seen as things that can go together, but as enemies that truth have to triumph over. Truth has to triumph over make believe and imagination. And I just really wish we could stop thinking that way. Like, and to be fair, I think a bunch of people listening to a Christian geek podcast are not going to think that way, that they're going to be very embracing of imagination and bringing that together with the Christian faith to teach truth. But speaking to a even broader audience, like we really need to recapture the value of imagination, that our imagination is something that is a part of us, which means that is something that is being sanctified in us. And I really think that imagination is one of those things one of those like a muscle, like you use it or lose it type of situation. And the more times we use it, the stronger it gets. And as we open this up to being something that for God to sanctify, for the Holy Spirit to change in our life, to be more like Jesus, then we can have a powerful imagination that we can relate to our children in a way to build them up and to just, have a bit of a life. It's okay to be creative.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about how you understand your Bible, or when you're watching Bluey, just remember, something doesn't have to be historically factual to be true.
We did just talk about the whole Leviathan thing. Also, parables aren't real stories. Those aren't like autobiographical stories. Those were made up on the moment.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing, like a rant I could do, but I'll just for now say it does aggravate. No, actually, the historical parts of the Bible, it just aggravates me how much people argue about whether it happened or not. Like, yeah, it's an important thing to talk about, but also, man, whether it happened or not, it's the point of the story is still true. So,
sure.
Cool. Okay.
That kind of gets into the Job conversation of, was Job an actual event that occurred, or is it just an allegorical piece of wisdom literature? And if you're C.S. Lewis, it's like broke or made better, like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's the point still stands.
Yeah. It's like if you were to tell me a story about your dog or something to like make an illustration for a point we're talking about, and I stopped you and went, wait a minute, do you actually have a dog? It's like, that's clearly not the point of this. Like, why is that your focus right now?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I think
that's it for me.
Long and fun. We probably could do more Bluey episodes.
There's a whole bunch. I've watched a lot of kids shows. Again, if you want this to be a thing,
a whole series of kids shows,
whole thing. Yeah.
Here we go. Well, maybe the next kid show will be on our YouTube. People should go over there and check it out. But for now, we're going to wrap this one up, starting with recommendations. I don't have anything off the top of my head. Give me a second. Oh, the new Spider-Gwen Shadow Clones. Pretty good. I'm going to recommend that one. Brandon.
I'm going to stick with the theme of kid shows. So to those few parents who are listening to SG, if you haven't gotten around yet to sit your kid down and watch the reboot of Fraggle Rock Back at the Rock, it's an Apple TV Plus exclusive. It's really good. That Jim Henson guy, he did something magical with the Muppets, with his, the Muppet characters, because, man, you turn on something that's a Jim Henson production for a kid, they will sit motionless and enjoy every moment of it. And as an adult, it's also not quite as engaging as Bluey, but you can definitely, like, you're picking up on the messages, what they're trying to teach the kid, and it's at least something my wife and I appreciated what they were teaching.
And with that, we need you all to do us one really important favor, and remember that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests. This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.